the good news, the bad news for this Nebraska defense. First of all, I think a lot of good news, Steve Sipple. They played 35 guys. 27 guys saw more than 10 snaps in the game.
Wow.
So it's a remarkable number of guys. Having some trouble over there, big guy?
Just the microphone almost fell down.
Fumbling the ball there before the snap.
I jumped on it. No, Sean, I jumped right on it.
You tried to pick it up and keep going.
I jumped on it. They're good news, bad news. I mean, the good news is, as you mentioned, 35 guys that's a beautiful number that they play.
Well, especially in a game that was fairly tight for 3 quarters.
So you said 27
played more than 10 snaps.
More than 10 snaps. That's excellent. Also good news. Nebraska allowing, and we have to celebrate these stats to a certain extent because we haven't had a chance to do a lot of this in the recent years. Nebraska 4th in the nation right now in average rushing yards allowed per 1.74. Okay, that's the number. 1.74 per carry. 4th in the country, Sean. James Madison is number 1. Who knew? Opponents are only averaging 0.77 yards per carry against James Madison. Air Force number 2, 1.62 yards per carry by opponents. Arkansas 3, 1.72. Nebraska 4. Now that's a number. You can say, well, these opponents aren't great rushing teams. Well, Minnesota hangs its hat on it, or they have in recent years. Colorado does not. Northern Illinois would have liked to run better. They
didn't want to run. They sure as heck didn't want Lombardi throwing a ton.
Right. So no, that is an excellent number. The bad news is they've only forced 3 turnovers. Now that part will come, I think, because they hit. They get a lot of guys to the ball, does Nebraska, and they hit hard. This is a very strong tackling team. It is. Talked to George Darlington about that this week. George, come on, he's got 3 national title rings. He coached defensive backs for the best defenses that Nebraska's ever had. He knows what it takes to play defense and to force turnovers. He says this is what he said, Sean. This is an extremely good tackling team. Now, when George says it, I listen because George knows football, but also because you know what else George does? He'll be the first to criticize a bad situation.
There's a lot of things he's told you over the years you could never publish.
No, he will. He's
unfiltered.
He's unfiltered and very honest. And he says extremely good tackling team here. Extremely good.
George is a beauty.
Yeah, he's smart. He's very intelligent.
He'll tell you how it is.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah. And anybody who's sat with him in the press box, including yourself, he sees things way before anybody does.
When he doesn't care, he's uncancelable at his age. Like he'll say what he wants to say. He doesn't care. Like,
but he's not inappropriate.
No. But he's blunt.
He's blunt about he has just said you can't win with Jeff Sims. He said that's his opinion. I said, George, that's just your opinion. That's your opinion. And now he said that after the opener, by the way.
And Coach Rule will talk to George.
Oh yeah. Those guys can be blunt with each other.
They appreciate, like him and Ed Foley. They appreciate George just
unfiltered. He's very opinionated, but he's right about most things.
Osborne had some. When you think about that staff now, think about Milt and George and Charlie. There were some personalities there.
Oh
now.
yeah, and I'll tell you. It's not like they always got along.
No,
Sean, they did not always get along. 100%. That's not. I wouldn't go on a show and say that if I didn't know it. Have
you seen Coach McBride or heard? I haven't heard
from him in a long time.
I wonder how he's doing because I haven't seen him around or heard much from Coach. And obviously he's a legend in the program too. But it's good to see George back.
George is at pretty much every game, and he's at a lot of practices. And he told me, Sean, he quit going to. He would only go to a few practices of the previous head coaches because he said it was terrible. I'm just telling you
Scott Frost, right?
Yeah, he said it was terrible. And he loved. Well, I'll read you why don't we just do this? I'll read you a quote because I was using this in a speech. This is what George said about Matt Rule. He'll get it done here. I really believe that. If you hear any crap about him or hear, well, I don't know about this guy. just know I'm on his bandwagon because with so many head coaches here, I'd go to one practice and see it was crap. Excuse my French, but I didn't want to waste my time. What he likes is that they tackle in practice, they scrimmage, that they will scrimmage during the week. You know, they'll just have a period where they scrimmage. They'll go at it. He loves that, and he loves that they got all the guys practicing. Those are the things he really
Well,
likes.
on the Tuesday, Wednesday, they're back to being kind of an old school. Before, I mean, I think between Riley and Frost, there was kind of this mentality to really be careful in practice,
Right.
which didn't give you a good look for the week.
Sean, you that's a good way to put it. Rule, I would say, is less careful in the way he approaches the hitting part. He's not that he's reckless, but he's just less
Well,
careful.
can you imagine the Penn State he played for in the 90s, what those practices were probably like? And
like Nebraska in the 90s.
Well, and they had great depth on those Penn State teams. They could go hard.
Yeah, and it was a different time. You got to allow for that. But like Nebraska in the 90s, Tom would let us watch practice, Sean. And I would tell you this. We'd be in the latter, the media would be in for the latter stages of practice. And sometimes we would catch their goal line drill, which was live. And that was as much violence as I'd want to see. I mean, I would back off the field because it was a very violent drill. I mean, it was a goal line drill, and it was Lawrence Phillips trying to get in the touchdown again in the end zone against Wistrom and Peter and Ogard and whoever else. You know, I mean, it was amazing.
And it goes back to the notion that, hey, you want your practices to be harder in the game.
And it was.